Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Above the Rim Rundown, where we run down all things NBA. I am one of your hosts, Memo, and today, right beside me, I got Hoops. How are you doing?
What's going on, man? Overall, I'm doing good. Pretty much the same old as before. Long work days every day, um, 8-hour shifts. Afterwards, I usually go to the gym for about hour and a half. After that, go home, have dinner, and then take a shower and pretty much chill and rest before I repeat that cycle for 5 days straight until the weekend comes. So these weeks are definitely, I would say, long weeks. Some weeks go by a little bit faster than others, but overall, hanging in there, still doing good. How you doing, man?
You're good, and it's good that you're hanging in there. I know it could be grueling during the work week. I have my fair share of obstacles throughout the week. It can be tough going to work, but at least you're making time for yourself, chilling. What's like your favorite thing to do to unwind? I guess.
Um, Honestly, sounds pretty boring, but recently to unwind, I haven't really done anything out of the norm. I kind of like sit on the couch, maybe watch like YouTube on my phones or on my computer. And then if I'm really tired, I just close my eyes and I fall asleep. That's kind of what I've been doing during the week because like I get like pretty exhausted in the evening, not gonna lie. Sometimes I just like lay down on the couch and I fall asleep. And then it's like 3 a.m. when I open my eyes again. I'm like, oh shit, I should be in my actual bed, not on the couch. That happens sometimes. Um, but yeah, recently to unwind, I haven't really done anything outside of the norm. Mostly just stuff like that, honestly.
I'm like the same way. At least during the work week, I would just go on my phone, watch TikToks, watch YouTube videos, podcasts, or whatever. It's I would take naps too. Like yesterday, I regretted it so much, but I took like a 4 hour nap on my couch, and yeah, I felt like I wasted the day because all I did was work, sleep, get ready for work, and then went back to sleep. So that kind of sucks, but I definitely needed the rest, especially since I've been sick like all week.
Yeah.
I think today was like the first day I'm actually like feeling a lot better. I still have like a nasty cough, but other than that, I feel pretty good. But yeah, I do that. I make TikToks sometimes. Check out our TikToks. I've been dropping TikToks and YouTube Shorts. I re-upload them on YouTube Shorts. Um, I had a couple of complaints about my mic placement. The people didn't like it when I used my like little mic that's on my
Oh,
earphones.
I think
I thought it was kind of
I think I
stupid
did see
complaint.
that one comment.
Yeah, I thought that
Yeah.
was
Honestly,
stupid.
honestly, I didn't really think much about it, but then after reading that comment, it's like then I can't really help but to focus on that. Like sometimes there's just certain things that like you don't think of until a person mentions it, and then that's all you think of, which is like, sometimes a little bit more unfortunate than others, but honestly, I didn't really notice it until reading that comment.
Yeah, I thought it was stupid, but I thought the videos I made were pretty cool. If you haven't seen them, I hope you should check them out. They were about my predictions on the play-in, which we will definitely be talking about today. We will be not playing. We will be talking about the play-in matches that happened this week and the playoffs because as of this recording, it is uh, technically Saturday. It just became Saturday for us, and so that means the play-ins just ended. The playoffs are about to start, so we thought it'd be a good idea to cover the play-in games and then go over our predictions on the playoffs. So, without a further ado, let's talk about the play-in matches. We'll start off with the Western Conference, the better conference, and we'll start with the very first play-in games, which is Lakers versus Pelicans. Um, uh, what were your predictions going into this matchup?
Yeah, going into this matchup, so obviously, the last regular season game of the season, or the last regular season game played was between these two teams in New Orleans. That was a very big game for various reasons. For the Pelicans, they wanted to win that game to try to avoid the play-in tournament and get the sixth seed. For the Lakers, they wanted to win that game so they could maintain the eighth seed, which they were at before that game. And pretty much that game really wasn't that close. The Lakers jumped up to a lead, led by over 20, and they hung on. There was no looking back. So knowing that after that the Pelicans finished seventh and the Lakers finished eighth, we knew that they would have a rematch in the play-in game between the seventh seed and the eighth seed. And I figured that the game would definitely be much closer because one, Pelicans want to maintain seventh seed. Two, they want to try to get their revenge for how badly the Lakers destroyed them the previous game. And it looked like I was right. The game was pretty good, pretty competitive. Early on, it was a pretty back and forth start. The Pelicans later went on to build as much as an 8-point lead early in the first quarter. But it was the second quarter when the Lakers really turned things around, outscoring the Pelicans 34-16, and they ended up turning that 8-point deficit into a 10-point halftime lead. And in the third quarter, Lakers went up by as much as 18, and you thought maybe this would be another blowout, kind of like the previous game on Sunday. Wasn't the case. After going up by 18, Lakers kind of relaxed a bit, allowed the Pelicans to get back into the game. At the very end, the Pelicans ended up tying the game on several instances under 4 minutes as the teams traded several baskets at the end, and the game went down to the wire. Ultimately, the Lakers were able to come out on top thanks to a few clutch shots, including a clutch three by D'Lo, as well as some clutch free throw shooting. And this helped the Lakers get over the top and help them seal the 7th seed in a rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals against the Denver Nuggets. But that was pretty much my take on this game. Memo, any additional thoughts on your end you think that I missed potentially? I mean, I think I maybe missed a few small key points, but
Well, you covered it very well. I mean, like, I did believe the Lakers were going to win this game based off of what's been going on this regular season, because the Lakers just seems to always beat the Pelicans for some reason. Whether it was the last game of the season, whether it was other games during the regular season, whether it's part of the play-in, not play-in, what is it called? The in-season tournament, where we all thought that Zion was some fat slob after losing to the Lakers in the in-season tournament. Like, the Lakers have the numbers, so I did assume that they were gonna win, but I didn't think it was gonna be as competitive as it was in the second half of the game, because yeah, the Lakers did have a lead, but Zion really carried them to a comeback and was having probably his best game in his career so far. We've never seen Zion in the postseason before. This is not the playoffs, but it's still postseason game, and Zion was showing flashes of the potential that we all thought that he had coming into this league. And unfortunately, even though he was having a great game had 40 points, I think over 10 rebounds. When he was driving, he injured himself, and now he has a hamstring injury. I believe he's gonna be um, out for a bit. Like they need to check up on it in like a couple weeks. So that's not good for the Pelicans for sure, and definitely not good during this game because the Pelicans were looking like they might have won this game if Zion just stayed on the floor, which unfortunately he couldn't due to the injury. So, because of the injury and how poor Brandon Ingram and McCollum was playing, the Lakers ended up taking advantage of that opportunity and ended up winning. And a game where like Anthony Davis and LeBron weren't doing the best, like their numbers were decent. The efficiency wasn't. They weren't as aggressive. It was really D'Lo who was hitting the big shots. So, uh, as a Lakers fan, I am happy that they won and made it to the playoffs, even though they will be facing the Nuggets, which I'm not excited about. Um, but yeah, as a NBA fan, I do feel bad for the Pelicans and how that game turned out. Like, uh, it leaves a lot of question marks for what's gonna happen for this team moving forward. That's for sure.
Definitely. And as you mentioned, this is a really entertaining game. Obviously, the Lakers' award from winning this game is a rematch with the Denver Nuggets in the first round. Not going to be easy, and we'll share our thoughts a little bit later in this video. But definitely glad that they made the playoffs. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's it for Lakers Pelicans talk. Should we move on to Warriors Kings talk? Because dude, I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about this one. Are you?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So, Warriors and Kings. That was the second play-in tournament game on Tuesday, and that was between the ninth seed Kings and the 10th seed Warriors. Pretty much what happened in that game is the Kings jumped out to an early lead in the first quarter, and then ultimately in the second quarter, the Warriors make a run. I believe they pulled it to within three at halftime. But afterwards, the Kings come up firing to start the second half. And at that point, it was too late for the Warriors. They were not able to come back or make it closer. Horrible game for Klay Thompson. He did not score anything, put up a donut. I think it was like 0 for 10 shooting, something like that. Nonetheless, a very disappointing season for the Warriors this year. They tried to make their comeback. Obviously, well, they had a very roller coaster of a season. They started the year pretty good the first 5 games, I believe, like 4-1, 5-1, something like that. And then afterwards, they went on a crazy losing streak, and they pretty much stunk it up in November, December, January. But then, pretty much post All-Star break, they went on a run, and due to the tough Western Conference, they remained in the 10th seed most of the time. Kind of swapped seeds with the Lakers every now and then between 9 and 10. Ultimately, they finished at 10th again, and as we see here, didn't end well for them. And just 1 week ago, 1 week before this game actually, that was also on a Tuesday, and that was when the Warriors beat the Lakers in LA in a very pivotal game. I remember Warriors fans were talking so much smack, man. They thought that they were going to steal our playoff spot, and they thought we were going to miss the playoffs. And what now? How the tables have turned. The Lakers win their first playing game, make the 7th seed, and the Warriors get absolutely slaughtered by the Kings in the very first playing game. And man, as Lakers fans, this feels great.
Yeah, definitely
Warriors
smoking
fans
on that
talk so
Warriors
much
pack
smack.
right now. That's for sure.
Definitely. They really do talk too much though, and a lot of bandwagon fans. They really Lakers live really literally live rent free in Warriors fans' minds. Like they almost think about us more than their own team. I'm definitely convinced, and I know a lot of that has to do with LeBron. But come on now, you should be caring about your own team more. But one question we have is what's next for the Warriors? To start, I believe Klay Thompson is going to be a free agent this year. Are they going to keep him or are they going to let him walk? Now, obviously, he's didn't really have the greatest of seasons, so you could argue that him leaving might not be a horrible loss for them. But who knows? Maybe it could be a horrible loss for them because maybe he'll find another team and he'll do better. Um, we'll see. But
Doubt it.
Memo, any additional thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'll stick to the game at first because you do pose a great question on the future of the Warriors, which I do want to tackle. But going back to the game, like, yeah, it was a blowout, and it was a lot of because a big reason why is because Keegan Murray, who was hitting threes like crazy, started defending Curry early on the game, and it slowed him down a bit. Then then Ellis really took over on the defending Curry duties and really helped out on that end. I believe he had like uh, a good amount of steals and blocks. Really like great defense on Curry. Fox was fired in the third quarter, and basically Steph was slowed down, and Steph was like the only guy actually doing something. As he said, Klay Thompson 0 for 10, bum, absolute bum, washed. Like Celtics Shaq is what Klay is right now, and it's for me who's been on the hate train towards Klay Thompson, who's been saying he's overrated. I love to see this. Like, I thought he was one of the most overrated players for so long, and now that he's washed, I love to see it. And when you ask like what's the future for Klay Thompson, I think the best move for him is to take a huge pay cut and stick with the Warriors because first of all, if he goes to like the Magic or something, which like there's a lot of rumors for that for some reason, the amount of like he's gonna be in one of those montages with the Celtics Shaq, the Charlotte Tony Parker, the help me out,
Wizards, Michael Jordan.
there we go, Wizards Michael Jordan. He's gonna be in that list because
Raptors, Hakeem Olajuwon.
there
Maybe you don't even know they have.
yeah, that surprised me like 5 years ago. Like, when did that happen? But like,
Yeah.
and like realistically, what is he gonna do? Because the like, if he goes to the Magic, he's definitely not there for the defense, and the Magic got the defense covered. But for shooting, like, yeah, he'll win you a game every 40 games, but like he's like that's it. He'll win you 2 games in the season and that's it. That's all he's good for. He'll make a few threes. I think for his legacy's sake, he should stick with the Warriors as long as possible and take a pay cut. Like, he is very egotistical. He thinks he's still that guy. He loves to showboat those 4 rings that Curry helped him get. So he thinks he's worth a lot. He's not. He's not. I think he should take the Russell Westbrook route and take like a vet minimum for the Warriors. And it will help the Warriors a lot because Steph needs a second star. And as good as Kuminga is, he's not going to be that second star. Draymond is still a good defender, but he's never been a star. He's been a good role player at best, who's insanely good at defense, I guess. And even Draymond, like, should Draymond even be on the team? Because I think a big part of the reason why the Warriors stunk this season is because he's been out for 30 games due to his antics. Like, when he's on the floor, this team is definitely better than what their records show, what their seeding was. If Draymond was able to stay on the court, I think they would have been in the playoffs. Honestly, um, so and I'm sure Curry's just tired of it too. Like he wants to win, and he knows he's not gonna win with Draymond on the team, with Clay on the team, with Chris Paul on the team. That was a weird
Oh yeah,
experience. Like
forget.
you forget he's there because like what does he do? Nothing.
Yeah, I mean he was also injured a lot of the year,
Uh
and
huh.
he didn't really do much this season either when he was playing.
Exactly. So like they need to do something about him as well, and it's hard because like these contracts aren't really the best. You want to please the veterans. And there's a lot of players that you got to deal with. I forgot Andrew Wiggins. Where was he? What has he done? Like ever
He didn't
since he
do much.
won a chip with the Warriors, he's done nothing for the Warriors. Yeah, he had some like
Yeah,
personal issues like last season, I believe, but since that, like he's been a bum as well. He's been like Minnesota Andrew Wiggins, like it's
yeah,
not good. Like they
that
need to
was.
deal with him as well. There's so many guys that they gotta like get rid of in order to help Curry's legacy because right now it's definitely on the line. I think it's over. Like the dynasty is definitely over, but for like
Oh
Steph's
yeah,
legacy like situation, unless he like joins LeBron, he's never gonna win a ring uh,
I
with the
agree.
Warriors, especially.
Yeah,
But
yeah, definitely. Warriors have a lot of question marks. I believe it is the end of the dynasty. I hope it's the end of the dynasty. I'm pretty confident it is. I mean, maybe they'll still be a good team, make the playoffs, but as far as championship goes, doubt it. Um, and those question marks, I guess a safe question is how will all this affect Steph Curry's legacy? Just like sometimes they would ask, how would this affect LeBron's legacy? But now for Steph and the Warriors, we shall see. It should be an interesting offseason.
yeah, I'm very curious on what the Warriors are gonna do. I'd hate to be the front office over there because there's a lot of tough decisions to make. Um,
Yeah, and they don't have Bob Myers anymore. Their new GM needs to take care of all that.
yeah, Bob Myers dipped at the perfect time. That's for sure. But I
Yeah,
guess we
smart man.
smart man. Yeah. We can now move
Yeah.
on to today's game, or I guess yesterday's game if we're being technical, which was Pelicans versus Kings. Of course, since the Pelicans lost to the Lakers, they had to face the winner of Kings versus Warriors. So Pelicans went against the Kings at uh, New Orleans. And yeah, I caught a brief. I caught the first half. The Pelicans were doing pretty good. I didn't catch the second half, but do you want to go over what went down?
Yeah. So to start, pretty much an overview on this matchup. Pelicans, they absolutely owned the Kings in the regular season this year, sweeping them 5-0 thanks to the extra game from the in-season tournament. And they pretty much handily won every game. I believe one or two of them might have been like maybe one of them was single digits. The rest of them, the Pelicans all won handily. And obviously, knowing that Zion got injured, they would have to play this game without him, and definitely expected to be a little bit more challenging. And in the beginning of the game, it looked like it. The Kings got off to a good start. They went up by as much as 7 late in the first quarter. However, in the second quarter, must I note, all season long, the second quarter has pretty much been the Pelicans' downfall. They usually don't do good in the second quarter, kind of like what happened against the Lakers when the Lakers outscored them big. Not today, or last night, shall we say. Um, Pelicans actually used the second quarter to make a big run of their own, where they went on an explosive run, and they ended up turning the 7 point deficit into a 9 point halftime lead. Contrary, almost like the exact opposite of the Tuesday game against the Lakers. And then in the fourth quarter, the Pelicans go up by as much as 20. After that, the Kings try to make a run and come back. Ultimately, it wasn't enough. Pelicans managed to hang on for a 7 point win, and Pelicans absolutely own the Kings this season, sweeping them 6-0. Imagine losing to a team 6 times in one season without even meeting them in the playoffs.
Bro, that's crazy.
That's tough, man.
That is tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, granted, like 2 of the extra games came from like tournaments, in-season tournament and play-in tournament. But yeah, that is crazy though. Like losing to a team 6 times, but you didn't even play in a real playoff series. Anyhow, this was a really big win for the Pelicans. They now will, and they clinched the 8th seed in the Western Conference, and they will be going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder in the 1 versus 8 matchup. Good for them. As far as the Kings go, they started the season relatively good. Obviously, this season they weren't quite as good as they were last year. Last year, they had a pretty good season to end that playoff drought, and they finished as the 3rd seed, actually. I forget how high they were last year. Obviously, they lost in the first round against the Warriors, but that's a story for another day. Nonetheless, the Kings, it was a disappointing finish knowing that they were in the playoff picture for pretty much the whole year. But the very last few weeks, they lost a lot of crucial games that they needed to win. And they definitely blew a few leads, I saw, like against good teams and whatnot. But the fact that they went from playoff picture all year to eventually falling to the 9th seed and then eventually officially missing the season altogether after last night, that's tough for this team. I believe they can definitely be back in contention next year. They're still a young team. They still have a good head coach in Mike Brown. And Malik Monk's injury definitely hurt that team a lot. But they did what they could. And honestly, I think the Kings will be okay going forward. But Memo, any additional thoughts on this game in particular or whatnot?
Yeah, I just feel bad for the Kings. Like, they had such a great, good feel story last year, and to see them plummet from their heights of the 3rd seed from last year and almost making it to the second round if it wasn't for a Stephen Curry 50-point game in Game 7. They were like right there to not even making the playoffs, losing in the play-in to the Pelicans, who again they've lost to 5 times this season before the play-in. Like, they were set up to have a horrible way to end off the season. Like, this was very unfortunate for them, especially with like Malik Monk being injured, Cameron Herter, who wasn't the best this season, but he was out for the rest of the season, which definitely hurts. I think one of the best parts about their run last year was like they were healthy throughout the entire season. That's why they were so good, because they had like their whole team throughout the whole season. So it definitely sucks for them, especially since the Pelicans. Yeah, they don't have Zion, but they know how to play without Zion. Like, they've shown it before how great they can be without him. Yeah, McCollum has his moments, but Ingram has his moments. Valanciunas has his moments where they could be streaky, but when it's time to compete, they all like do come together and try to go for it, try to win it. They scrap for everything, and they have a lot of credible players like Herb Jones, Trey Murphy the third, Alvarado. So like it's unfortunate the Kings had to face them basically because they are a tough team even without Zion, who they do need for sure when facing OKC. But yeah, again, unfortunate for the Kings. I can't help but feel bad for them. It is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do better next
And
year.
yeah, definitely matchup problems. I think one thing about basketball, NBA, like sports in general, certain matchups really do affect like these games a lot. And for example, pretty crazy if you think about it. Kings Kings swept Lakers 4-0. Lakers beat Pelicans 4-1. Pelicans sweep Kings 6-0. Think about how
That's
crazy
crazy.
that
That
is.
that is crazy.
One team, yeah, one team owns another team that owns another team, but that team owns the team that owned the team that owned you. It's crazy.
That's
But
a confusing way to put it, but
I
I see what you mean.
yeah, yeah, it is. But I think at the end of the day, it worked in the Lakers' favor that we got to pay the Pelicans as opposed to the Kings or the Warriors who owned us this year. Um, and then it worked in the Pelicans' favor too because obviously I'm sure they didn't want to lose to the Lakers, but in their second chance they got to play against a team that they owned, and then they still ended up making the playoff. And maybe for them, that's probably for them the more favorable matchup going up against OKC than against Denver. And yeah, I mean, sure the Lakers probably would have preferred that too, but I do think that the idea of losing that playing game on purpose just to try to get OKC was a dumb
That's
suggestion
so
by some people
stupid.
because
Yeah.
then yeah, because then you risk missing the playoffs entirely if they lose the second game, especially against two teams that owned us this season, the Warriors and the Kings. I wouldn't have wanted that. So definitely, I think the way things panned out was good for everyone at the end. But I believe that would be about good for the Western Conference playing games.
I agree.
Shall we move on to the Eastern Conference playing games?
Yeah, starting with Sixers versus Heat. This was an interesting game for sure. Where the first half it did seem like the Heat was in control. Butler was doing well in the first half. He was able to get some steals and fast break dunks early on in the first half. It seemed like the Heat were making threes, and it looked like they were gonna win it with the power of friendship. The Heat were gonna do it again and upset another Eastern Conference team, especially with Embiid not doing the best in the first half. It seemed like it might be going towards the Heat's way, but that was until the hero of the night, Nicholas Batum, Nick Batum of all people, went off. He was it like extremely important for this game. He had 20 points, which like isn't crazy when you think about like stars hit averaging 30 and stuff, but this man averaged 2 points a game this season and was able to make 20 points, 20 important points in one of the most important games of the season. Definitely his best game in the Philly jersey. And it started in the third quarter where he was draining threes and hitting some very tough shots to help close the gap between the Heat and the Sixers. And eventually it became a very like tight race towards the end. It was close game. There was, let's see, um, like Ubre hit a tough and one for the lead in the final 30 seconds. And that was after like Batum hit a few threes in the third and fourth quarter to help them get that opportunity to take the lead. And in the next possession, Batum had a huge block on Tyler Hero that kind of like sealed the game. Like after that, yeah, the Heat made a few baskets. They had to foul the Sixers, so the Sixers made free throws. But I believe that that Batum block basically sealed the game. And there's that funny quote from this rapper called Blue Bucks Clan where he's freestyling on this radio show, and he's like, and for some reason, like out of nowhere, Batum catches a stray. He says, "The fuck? Why is Batum in the game? Why is Batum in the fourth quarter? This is why Batum is in the fourth quarter, because he can pull off a win if you need him. When you need him the most, he will be there for you. He will play defense. He'll hit important threes. And if it wasn't for him, the Sixers probably would have lost to the Heat. So, yeah, what was your reaction to this game and how it all panned out?"
Yeah, this was definitely a really good game. Arguably the best playing game this year. But pretty much as you mentioned, the Heat started off the game hot, and they led big at the halftime. I believe they were up 14. Looked like it was going to be an easy win for the Heat. But then the Sixers stormed back, and pretty much it was a tightly contested game through most of the second half. Monster game from Nick Batum with 20 points on 7 of 12 field goals, including 6 out of 10 from 3. One of the bigger storylines of this game was Jimmy Butler getting hurt early, and despite that, he played through the injury. Unfortunately, it was clear and obvious that he was in pain, so he didn't really look like himself. And that turned out to be a pretty big blow, as I believe he's going to be out for like at least a few weeks, it looks like, if the Heat even make it far enough. So he practically might be out for their season, depending on how far they get. But nonetheless, this was a tough loss for the Heat, knowing that they were up big and controlled most of the first half. And after this game, they look to bounce back in the winner of the Bulls versus the winner of the Bulls and Hawks game, which we will mention momentarily.
Yeah, but before we do that, unless you have more to say about Sixers Heat, is it cool if we move on to Bulls versus Hawks?
Yeah, I would be good to move on.
Okay, this probably won't even take long either because
not much.
These two teams shouldn't even be in contention for the playoffs. Like,
I think that this was easily by far the biggest snooze fest, worst playing game this year.
Yeah, I mean, at least the world got to see how great Kobe White was. He scored 42
Agreed.
points that game. But yeah, it was a boring game. It ended up being a blowout. Both DeJounte Murray and Trae Young weren't doing that great. I think they were arguing at one point during the game. I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly, but I think Trae Young did something stupid, so DeJounte Murray started yelling at him, something like that.
I'm not gonna lie, I was so disinterested in this matchup, I really didn't watch
I don't
it.
blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah. I think I kind of tuned in 2.5 minutes left when the game was already a blowout, only because I was having dinner and I didn't know what else to watch.
Yeah, I was having
So it was
dinner with my family as well at BJ's. So it was my first time there, and the game was on. I was like,
nice.
okay,
He did good.
yeah, it was my first time there. I liked the burger I got, but yeah,
Nice.
I was
Which one did you get?
The brisket bacon cheeseburger.
Ooh, that one's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
But yeah, go on.
yeah, I was watching. I was like, okay. I mean, good for Kobe, but can we watch
Yeah.
something else? Like, it wasn't
Yeah.
that fun.
Agreed. And I was just gonna pretty much go on this game about some of my personal thoughts. Definitely happy to see Kobe White go off finally. Obviously he had a little bit of a slow start to his career. Um, but better late than never to finally have a blooming season. But that being said, he put up a really good 42-point performance, so shout out to him. The game itself, though, was not very exciting one bit. Bulls easily blow out the Hawks, um, go up big early in the first quarter. Then the Hawks try to get the game a little bit closer in the second quarter, and I believe they pulled it to single digits. But in the second half, the Bulls rebuilt their lead and blew the game open. And with this game, the Bulls advanced to the 8 versus 9 matchup versus the Heat. And it was definitely one of those super disappointing seasons for the Hawks as they end up missing the playoffs entirely. And furthermore, the Hawks are now no longer undefeated in playing games. They were 3-0 before this game, including a 2-0 run in 2022 when they beat the Hornets in the first game, and then they beat the Cavs to steal a playoff seed. And then last year when the Hawks stole a game in Miami against the Heat to gain the 7th seed instead of the 8th seed. They were 3-0, but because of this loss, the Hawks are now 3-1 in playing games, which is still a good record, but unfortunately meaning the end of this season.
Yeah,
And I
but
believe,
oh, go on.
go ahead, yeah, but I believe there isn't really too much else to talk about for this game because of how uncompetitive and big of a blowout and how bad these teams really are. So I think we are set up to talk about our final playing game, and that was last night between the 8th seeded Heat and the 9th seeded Bulls. Um, Memo, would you like to start it off?
Yeah, I don't have much to say. I mean, the better team won, which you kind of want to see when it comes to the play-in tournament. It always sucks when like
I
that
agree.
that Cavs situation that you just mentioned, where the Hawks surpass them that
Yeah,
game. That sucks when that happens. But uh,
it was definitely really disappointing to watch because I did like that Cavs team.
me too. Me
The
too.
year before they traded for Donovan Mitchell, they were still pretty fun to watch.
Right. So I am
Yeah,
glad that he won, especially with no Jimmy Butler on the floor. That's impressive. They were able to all rally together and beat uh, the Hawks, which on paper they should beat the Hawks. Like not the Hawks. I'm
agreed.
sorry, the Bulls. The Bulls. I meant to say the Bulls. On paper, they should beat the Bulls. Um,
It should be either of them.
yeah, yeah, but
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's not like the Bulls made it any harder. I'll the last thing I'll say, like I'll let you go after, but the last thing I want to say is like I feel bad for DeMar DeRozan. Like he is such a
I
great
agree.
player. At least when comes to offensive talent, the footwork, the skill set that he has is so good, and it's been wasted all these years. Like you thought maybe he had a chance winning it with Toronto, but the year that they traded him away is the year that they ended up winning a chip. And then he gets sent to the Bulls where they've been made this whole time, and he like has some clutch games. He's doing his thing. He's scoring buckets, and he's just probably never gonna win a ring. Like this man deserves a ring for what he's done throughout the league, throughout his career. But whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But what are your thoughts
Yeah.
on this game?
Yeah, so obviously this is a rematch of last year's um it was last year's 8 versus 10 matchup because like the Bulls were the 10th seed. They upset the Raptors and then that set up this matchup after the Heat lost to the Hawks. But pretty much if you recall last year's game between these two teams, it was really competitive. I believe the Bulls were actually leading for a good amount of the game, but the Heat had to come back and eventually steal that game. And then that helped them get the eighth seed, and eventually, you know the rest. The Heat were able to feed off that play and win to go on a deep run to the finals, which they just fell short against the Nuggets. But in this year's rematch, it wasn't quite as competitive as last year's game. The Bulls took a brief lead early by 5 points, but after that, just a few minutes in, the Heat took control throughout, going up by as much as 29 points at one point. The Heat ended up sealing this win at the very end, 112 to 91, to secure the eighth seed. And they set themselves up for a rematch against the Boston Celtics, which is like the Lakers and the Nuggets, another one of those conference finals rematches in the first round this year. That's pretty interesting for sure. Now obviously we know Jimmy's injury definitely changes some things a lot, but definitely going to be interesting. And we will talk about that series very soon. Um, but I believe that we have covered all of the play-in tournament games, and that leads us to our real playoff series previews.
Right, so we got the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference all set. We all now know the teams that are playing, so let's do some quick predictions on these games, starting with the Western Conference because they are the better conference. We got Thunder, the first seed, against the Pelicans, eighth seed. Two pretty young teams. I mean, definitely the Thunder being the youngest team in the league, I believe. Um, they're the first seed. They had an incredible season, surpassed a lot of expectations. We both thought they were gonna be good this season, but we didn't even think they'd be first seed good. And now they will be playing the Pelicans, who might not have Zion this series. That's something that we need to keep in mind. But they've shown that they can ball out without Zion. A few years ago they gave the Suns a run for their money in the playoffs without Zion, and they have a lot of those same players in this current roster. So, who who knows? Maybe Pelicans will upset the Thunder, but I'm gonna trust Shea on this one. I think Shea, being the MVP caliber player that he is, and with some great supporting cast like J Dub and Chet, I think they will win the series. And I said Thunder in five, especially if there's no Zion. I think the Thunder will make it a quicker series. But if Zion does somehow play, it'll still be tough for the Pelicans because Zion won't be 100%. But they could make it more competitive. They're very scrappy. They work hard every possession. Uh, their coach is really good. One of the best coaches in the league, honestly. So even though they both teams aren't maybe battle tested as you would like them to be, and Thunder is a definitely more younger team. I do think they'll take it. They were the first seed for a reason. So, my final prediction is Thunder in five. What about you?
So I believe this is definitely a pretty good, interesting matchup of two of the younger teams in the league, as you mentioned. Um, Both of these teams missed the playoffs last year, But now they're here. So shout out to these teams for having big seasons. Um, we all thought that OKC would be a good team this season, but no one really expected them to be first seeds good. And here we are. I believe that due to OKC being not very playoff experienced, I think the series might stretch out a little bit longer than it should be. But I do believe that they will win regardless if Zion plays or not. Um, my prediction was that OKC will win the series in 6 games. I feel like maybe Pelicans could find a way to steal one of the first 2 games on the road, and probably OKC and Pelicans will split the 2 games in New Orleans, games 3 and 4.
I will say
But I
that
believe from here,
the
Thunder
Pelicans
will finish them.
are sorry to cut you off like that, but I will say that the
Okay,
Pelicans are one of the better road teams in the league, but for some
they
reason
are.
one of the worst like home teams in the league. So those splits can very much happen, as he just said.
Agreed. Yeah. And it definitely is really interesting to learn how much they are actually, ironically, better on the road than at home. Um, yeah, I believe that honestly, this could be like a somewhat competitive series. But I do believe at the end, OKC will pull out with the win, and I predicted the Thunder to win in 6 games.
All right, so we'll see who ends up being right there. That'll be interesting. But we can now move on to the Nuggets versus Lakers. As much as I'm happy that the Lakers are in the playoffs, I'm like at the verge of tears. So this is like my worst nightmare. Like I this is like a guaranteed first round exit in my opinion, because the Nuggets are, they just have the Lakers number. They know how to play against the Lakers. They are extremely good. As we all know, they swept the Lakers last year. A lot of people say it's a competitive sweep, but part I feel like that's partially like coping, because a sweep was a sweep at the end of the day. The Nuggets destroyed them in the playoffs. They destroyed them in the regular season. We got to see with our very own eyes live Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets beating the Lakers this year when we went to see that um, 40,000 point game from LeBron together. Um, so
Yeah.
I don't think the Lakers are as bad as last year. So that's why I'm gonna say they are gonna win 1 game, but I really don't have a lot of faith. Like the nobody can on the Lakers can guard Jokic, and nobody knows what to do with Jokic. Really, like Anthony Davis is debatably the best defender in the league, and he can't do anything to stop Jokic or slow him down. Like if we double Jokic, he is debatably the best passer in the league. He's just gonna find Murray and he's gonna drain a three, or Michael Porter Jr. or KCP, whoever, and yeah, everything revolves around Jokic, and it's hard to stop that man. So that's why I'm saying Nuggets of 5. I think the Lakers are good enough to get 1 win, but not good enough to beat the Nuggets, unfortunately. Which, like, oh my god, I really don't want this series to happen, especially with Mike Malone gonna be bitching for no reason about the Lakers again. I'm sure that's gonna happen. Like
Oh, it's
he,
definitely gonna happen.
like the Lakers live in his head rent free for some reason, and I'm not excited
Yeah.
for it at all.
Yeah. It'll definitely be annoying for sure if they beat us again. And unfortunately, the odds really don't really look like they're in the Lakers' favor. And granted, it is the 2 versus 7 seed, so the 2 seed should be better than the 7 seed, if we're being real. And I believe probably they will be. And to break it off, obviously a rematch of last year's Western Conference Finals this year in the first round. Um, I think that a really big question mark is how who will guard Jokic? Because obviously AD is the Lakers' best defender, but even he has a hard time. So like, is there any way like maybe the Lakers can? I don't think stop Jokic, but could they slow him down and contain him a bit? It's gonna be hard because like whenever Jokic and Jamal play against the Lakers, they be hitting some really crazy ass shots. Like AD and LeBron would guard them so well, and Jokic would still shoot it over his damn head and drain those shots. Like, bro, what else can you ask from them? There's nothing else you can really do. Um, but that's what happens when you go up against the most likely to come three-time MVP in the league, man. It's tough. Um, but yeah, as we mentioned, the Nuggets have completely owned the Lakers ever since that Western Conference Finals matchup last year. Swept us there. They swept us in the regular season again this year. We gotta watch that game against them earlier this year, which we did have a lot of fun. We got to witness LeBron's historic night, but tough ending at the end. We should have won that game, but fell short, unfortunately. And yeah, every single time we play against the Nuggets, these last year's playoffs and this year's regular season games, they have been close, but really the Lakers just need to find a way to like win at the end. Like, and they say like on that last year's sweep was arguably the most competitive sweep ever, and probably it is. But unfortunately, there are no participation trophies. That's the difference between a 4-0 sweep to what could have been a 2-2 tie at that point, or maybe even Lakers lead 3-1. Um, it ain't. You can play the what if game as much as you like, but the reality is it didn't happen. So it's tough. But I do agree with you. I do believe that the Lakers should be able to take one game this year. If not, I'm gonna say this. My intake on this season is obviously losing the first round wouldn't be good, but knowing that we had to claw our way back, if we can just avoid getting swept by the defending champs, in my opinion, it's not all that bad. If we get swept against them again and lose in the first round, it wouldn't be a good look.
I'll cry.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I think we can steal one game. Maybe two if we can find a way to win one in Denver and one in LA. But most realistically, I think the Nuggets are gonna easily win this series, probably in 5 games. And I really hate to admit it as Lakers fans, but I think it's clear and obvious Denver is the better team, and they very likely could win back to back. We will see what happens there.
Yeah, we'll see. But I guess this is a good time to talk about the next matchup, which is Timberwolves versus Suns. Uh, I feel like I know which team you would like to win, right? Because
Yeah.
you are, out of the two of us, you definitely really like the Timberwolves a lot more than I do. And we both hate the Suns, or
Yeah.
at least
Agreed.
dislike the Suns. But what really do you think is gonna happen in this matchup? Like, what is your prediction?
Yeah, I don't really like this matchup for the Timberwolves, honestly. Very tough matchup for the Wolves. Suns handily won every game in the regular season, sweeping them 3-0. With two of them in the final week of the season. And I do not think that the Suns are gonna per se handily beat them as easily every game in the playoff series. But unfortunately, I do think the Suns are gonna pull the upset, if you want to call it an upset. Technically, it would be an upset because the Suns would not have home court advantage, but some will argue that they're the better team. We'll see. But unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to predict the Suns winning in 6. I would like the Timberwolves to win, and if they did win, probably I would predict them to win in 7 if they were to win. But unfortunately, I just feel like the Suns are not a good matchup for the Wolves, and it's going to be really challenging for them. And losing like a single home game would mean that they would have to win like a road game. And it's doable, but it's going to be really challenging. Unfortunately, I think the Suns are going to be too much with all those good shooters they have. KD, Booker, Beal, Grayson Allen, you name it, Royce O'Neal. It's going to be hard. So, unfortunately, my prediction would be the Suns beating the Timberwolves 4-2. Hope I'm wrong, but that's what I believe will happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Suns are gonna win it in six. Definitely a matchup nightmare for the Wolves because, yeah, the Suns kind of have their number. They definitely have Anthony Edwards' number. I believe he averages like 14 points a game during against the Suns this season, which is not good, especially since he's like the only like consistent offensive like machine on their team. And I say consistent because like yeah, Cat is amazing offensively, but he's still rusty from his uh, injury. He's still trying to get back into everything. And you know this is very concerning because Cat can also be a little streaky in the playoffs as well. So I don't know. You can't expect a lot of big things from him coming from injury and his past history in the playoffs. And yeah, even though the Timberwolves have like the best defense, they really don't have anybody that could stop the Suns' offense because they've got shooters everywhere, and their best defender is Rudy Gobert, who is a perimeter, not a good perimeter defender, right? He blocks shots around the rim, but you know when it comes to perimeter defense, he's not the best, and you obviously can't rely on him on that. The I'm sure the Suns are gonna shoot their way into a lot of victories, and yeah, it's gonna suck because this was a great season for the Timberwolves, and I kind of wish they would be beating the Suns, but it's not looking good for them unless something horrible happens to the Suns, which like I hope that doesn't happen. Um, I think it's Suns and six. Yeah, they got Kevin Durant, they got Devin Booker, they got Bradley Beal, three of the best like mid range shooters, great 3-point shooters as well. They got Grayson Allen, who's surprisingly a great 3-point shooter.
Yeah.
Like you said it, you listed a good amount of players who can shoot, and again, the Wolves got great defense, but I don't think it's gonna be enough. And especially since they have so many great the Suns have so many great shooters. How are we gonna expect Cat to defend one of them? Because that's what's gonna happen. They're gonna have like four great shooters and Nurkic out there. Obviously, Gobert is gonna be guarding Nurkic. Are we gonna expect Cat to defend Kevin Durant or who else that would be out there shooting at the 3-point line? Like that's tough. Like that's a tough assignment for Cat, especially coming from an injury. So unfortunately, it's a unfortunate matchup for the Timberwolves. So Suns and six is my prediction.
It looks like we agreed on another one. And that brings us to our final first round matchup of the Western Conference between the Clippers and the Mavericks in the 4 versus 5
Probably the
matchup.
most exciting matchup out of
I agree.
both conferences. I'm very excited about this, but uh, I guess I'll
Definitely.
bounce it back to you. Like, what do you think is gonna happen?
Yeah. So obviously, arguably the best matchup of the entire first round. This will be the third meeting in 5 years between the Clippers and the Mavs in the playoffs. The Clippers winning both of the previous two. In 2020, the Clippers won 4-2 in the bubble. In 2021, the Clippers won 4-3 in a crazy series where the road team won 6 out of 7 games until the Clippers won Game 7 at home. And since then, things have changed a little bit. Obviously, the Clippers now have James Harden to complete a big three, as opposed to at that time the duo of only Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. But also for the Mavs, they now have a new superstar pairing of their own. The previous two matchups, it was Luka and Kristaps Porzingis, who did not get along very well, unfortunately. A lot of it had to do with Porzingis not really liking the fact that Luka had all the shine, a little bit reminiscent of the Shaq being jealous of Kobe back in the day. But now Luka has a better sidekick with Kyrie Irving on his side, who has been playing really good this season. And obviously, previous few seasons as the Nets, and he was not really on the court a lot, whether it was sitting out due to his political beliefs or not taking the vaccine, all that stuff. This season hasn't been a problem at all. Kyrie has been available on the court, playing really well, and that's part of the reason why the Mavericks were able to get back in the playoffs and have a pretty high seed at 5, making it at the 5 seed in the Western Conference. Ultimately speaking, I believe this is going to be a very good matchup, similar to the previous matchups between these two teams. The Clippers won the previous two matchups. I believe this time it will be different. My prediction is that the Mavs will win this matchup in 6 games. I believe that they are the better team this year around. The Mavs did get a lot better since the last time they played against the Clippers. And I believe one of the bigger question marks for the Clippers really is the injury status of Kawhi Leonard. I saw the injury report that he may very likely miss game 1. That's not a good thing, honestly. Like, granted, the Clippers are still a good team without him, knowing that they still have Paul George and James Harden. But Kawhi Leonard in the playoffs, when healthy, is a different breed. Like, they will need him if they want to win this series. And that's going to be tough if he is going to be out game 1 or potentially even beyond. But that being said, I honestly think the Mavs beat them regardless if Kawhi plays in all the games or not. Final prediction, Mavs in 6. Memo, what are your thoughts?
I agree 100%. Yeah, the Clippers have beat the Mavs twice in the playoffs. But, Luka has a great history of just owning the Clippers as well. He has a lot of high-scoring games against the Clippers. And I think this year will be different from those past playoff series because, again, we've got Kyrie in the mix now, who has shown that he could be a nightmare for opponents in the playoffs. Obviously, winning a ring with LeBron. And yeah, the Mavs are, I feel like, yeah, they're the 5th seed, but they play better than like a typical 5th seed. Especially after the trade deadline, after they got Gafford, PJ Washington. They became like a new team. I think the team fit is a lot better now with those players because now Luka and Kyrie have lob threats on their side for easy buckets, easy efficient buckets. Derek Lively is a great rookie that I'm sure will get some good minutes in this series. Dante Exum has shown a few times throughout this season that he can come through for the Mavs. And, everything is looking good for the Mavs at the moment. While the Clippers, on the other hand, they might not have Kawhi, the by far their best player, and who has shown time and time again that he could be unstoppable in the playoffs. He's shown time and time game again that he is a winner. He's won a chip with the Spurs. He's won a chip with the Raptors. He is amazing during the playoffs, which we can't really say the same for James Harden and Paul George, who have had their tough moments in the playoffs. I mean, yeah, Paul George led the Clippers to their first conference finals, but he has also led several teams to a bunch of stinkers. And so has James Harden, probably even more egregiously than Paul George. If your faith is in the hands of Paul George and James Harden, it's not looking good for you, especially if you are the Clippers, who are basically cursed when it comes to playoff success. So I'll take Mavs in 6. It will definitely be a competitive series, but yeah, I think the Mavericks are going to win it.
Agreed. And that is another series where we have the exact same prediction. And I do believe that will for sure be a good matchup. And as you mentioned, I do believe that the Mavs are really better than the 5 seed indicates. I believe arguably they could be Denver's biggest threat in the Western Conference. We'll see what happens, but definitely should be really exciting. Yep. But without further ado, I believe we can now shift over to our Eastern Conference first round predictions.
Yup.
Or shall I say, the Leastern Conference, because they're not as good. And that starts off with the 1 versus 8 matchup between the Celtics and Heat, which is the rematch of last year's Eastern Conference Finals. Memo, would you like to start it off?
Yeah, I guess what I would like to say is that maybe like in the middle of the season, this is probably what I wanted the most, is the Celtics to face the Heat, because the Heat has a good history when competing against the Celtics. And, you know, as a Lakers fan, I don't want the Celtics to go to the finals.
Oh,
but
absolutely not.
With how weak the East is this year, it might happen. It might honestly happen.
It might happen.
And I'm not excited, especially since the one hope that I had that maybe had a chance to take down the Celtics before reaching the finals are not looking too good. The Heat has not been impressive this season. Yeah, they've had some good games. They have had some great stories, with Jaime Jaquez being a great rookie who has came in and done a lot of great things his first year in the league. But I've said this before the season started. I don't trust this playoff Jimmy. I don't trust it at all, especially now that he's not even be playing this game. I believe he might be out for this series. Without playoff Jimmy, like, what's the point of all this? Like, what's the point of the Heat coasting all season if he's not gonna be playing? Like, he's injured, which is unfortunate, but like, we've been waiting for this moment, and you're not even gonna be there. That sucks. That sucks so much. I really wanted the Celtics to lose the series. I really wanted the Heat to do a surprise push like last year and beat the first seed as the 8th seed, but it's not gonna happen, especially if Jimmy's not playing. If Jimmy's not playing like playoff Jimmy, it's not gonna look good. It really isn't. Like, they need playoff Jimmy. They don't even need Jimmy Butler. They need playoff Jimmy. There's a big difference. So because of the lack of Jimmy Butler, and that the roster from last year is better than this year, I feel like this year's roster isn't as good. I think Celtics are going to win it in 5. I'll be nice, and it'll be a gentleman's sweep, and they will win it in 5 games. But yeah, Celtics are winning this pretty easily. I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you that definitely I was hoping that the Celtics would play against the Heat in hopes that the Heat would make another magical run. But unfortunately, after Jimmy went down, I think it's an absolute long shot for the Heat to pull this upset now. And it's really unfortunate. Really tough blow losing their easily top best player on the team, who goes absolutely off. Playoff Jimmy, as mentioned, is a whole different breed than regular season Jimmy. Unfortunately, there's a very good chance we won't be able to see him this year. Um, that being said, I believe that if the I do believe that if the Heat did have Jimmy Butler and everyone healthy, maybe they could have turned some heads and who knows, upset them again. But because he is out, I don't see that happening really. Now, I do think that the Heat will make it like somewhat tough on the Celtics and give them a run for their money. Like not to the point where they're gonna really threaten to win the series, but I think maybe the Heat could potentially steal 2 games just because they have Eric Spoelstra, a really good head coach, who pretty much knows what it takes to beat Boston, even though it would be really hard without Jimmy. And I know I've said that a lot, but that's really important that they're losing that guy of significance. Um, but I do believe that the Heat will remain competitive despite all that. But I don't think it'll be enough for them to win the series. So for me, I believe that the Celtics will win the series, but in 6 games. I think maybe the Heat can find a way to split game one and game two, steal one in Boston, and then Boston will take one in Miami, and they will be tied 2-2, going back into Boston for game five, and that's where I believe the Celtics are just gonna finish them and win 2 straight. And game six they will end back in Miami. I hope that the Heat prove us wrong and find a way to pull the massive upset of the year, but I don't see it happening. So my final prediction is Celtics winning in 6 games.
6 games. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, we have slightly different opinions, but we both know that the Celtics are gonna win it. But yeah, let's move on to Knicks versus Sixers, second seed versus seventh seed. What do you think is gonna happen here? This was definitely one of the tougher matchups to predict, and yeah, I'll leave it up. I'll leave it to you. Like, what do you think is gonna happen?
So obviously, classic rivals right here, division rivals. Obviously New York and Philly being not very far away from each other, so geographical rivals too. Um, Really good matchup. Knicks obviously finished the season as one of the hottest teams in the league, and Sixers obviously had a roller coaster of a season when Joel went down, but after he came back, they gained back some momentum. I believe this is going to be a really good series and easily could go either way. It was definitely a bit challenging to pick the winner, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I do believe that the Knicks are the better team this season. And that being said, I think that the Sixers will definitely put up a really tough fight. But I believe that the Knicks will win this game. And my prediction was that they will win this game in 6 games. Now, I believe it could go 7. And if Philly were to win, they could win in 6 or 7 maybe. I mean, like, they would be capable of winning on the road, I think. I do know, like, obviously Joel Embiid has a really good career record against the Knicks. I don't know what his updated record is now, but I do know, like, as far as last season, I believe he was still, like, undefeated, never lost to them for a while, I think. or maybe that was Ben Simmons' record. I don't know. I get confused. I just know that Philly practically owned the Knicks for a long time. But I believe that the fortune will slightly change a little bit here. Could go either way, but I do believe this year the Knicks are a better team. So give me the Knicks in 6 over the Sixers. Memo, what are your predictions?
Yeah, this is interesting. This is the first matchup where we both have different opinions on who's actually going to win. Which, like, to be fair, this is hard to predict. It really is. There's a lot of questions we need to like, think about, especially when it comes to Embiid's health, because right now he seems a little out of shape. He seems like he gets tired pretty easily when uh, looking at his performance in the play-in. But like at his peak this season, he was like the front runner for MVP easily. And that's kind of what I'm trying to bank on, because I do think the Sixers are actually gonna beat the Knicks in 6. That's my opinion, and I think it's because I for some reason trust Embiid. Like, I know he's shown time and time again why we shouldn't trust him in the playoffs, but and especially since he's like recently came back from injury, it feels foolish to root for this guy. But I don't know. I feel like he can stun the Knicks. The Knicks do have great defenders that might slow down Embiid, but if he can play like a slither of how great he was earlier this season, then yeah, I don't think the Knicks can stop him at all. Uh, Maxi is gonna need to prove that he is uh, as good as he was in the regular season, and yeah, I don't know. It's tough. Like, I'm kind of convincing myself maybe it will be the Knicks, because they do have a lot of great defenders with OG, Hartenstein, Mitchell Robinson that could try to slow down Embiid, but at his best, he could really do some damage. Embiid. Um, so part of me wants to change my mind, but you know what? I'm gonna stand on business. I'm gonna say Sixers at 6, and it'll make things more interesting, knowing that we both have kind of different opinions on this. Like, I'm sure Brunson's gonna do
Yeah.
amazing, in this series, because like he has shown that he is a playoff riser, and it helps the Knicks that Julius Randle's not there to like choke and ruin their
Yeah.
season. So it's looking good for the Knicks, but I have hope in Joel Embiid, and I really don't believe he's gonna go out like this. I believe he's gonna go out fighting. So uh, if he does lose, it's to be expected, but I'm just gonna go for it. Sixers in 6.
All right. Can't hate on it. And I believe it definitely could go either way, as we mentioned. Personally, I definitely am pulling for the Knicks in this one. I believe this team this season was pretty special. I believe they could definitely make some noise if all goes right. Um, and obviously knowing like how disappointing the Bucks have been this season and the Heat also. Low key, I feel like the Knicks potentially could on arguably be the Celtics' biggest competition in the Eastern Conference. Maybe. Um, we'll discuss that later, maybe if they advance further. But definitely, this is going to be a really good matchup. We have different predictions, and I think that definitely makes things extra interesting. I guess we shall see what happens. But I believe that would be good for us to move on to our next matchup, and that is the 3 versus 6 matchup between the Bucks and the Pacers.
This will be a good
Guess I'll start.
series.
Oh, it will definitely be a good series. So just to pretty much sum up the lead up, obviously a highly anticipated matchup after these two teams had a very heated regular season series this year. The Pacers absolutely dominated the Bucks 4-1 in the regular season games, and obviously one of them was in the in-season tournament that prevented the Bucks from going to the championship game against the Lakers, which instead set up the Lakers versus Pacers in the championship match. And obviously, it was a really good game, but obviously, because of how heated these two teams played against each other, these teams got into it a lot. And obviously, there was that one interaction. I believe it was the last game that they played when, or maybe like the second to last game when Giannis was trying to get the game ball after he scored 50, but the Pacers wanted to keep the game ball because one of their rookies like scored their first career point or whatever it was, something like that. And turns out that the Pacers actually had the backup ball, and Giannis thought they had the real game ball, so there was a lot of arguing back and forth there. But that's just the start of some stuff. I remember in January on the podcast, I don't remember whose podcast it was, but Malik Beasley went on board, and pretty much he said that we know that we will play them again in the playoffs, and I'm telling you, it won't be pretty for them. We'll see, man. Like, and he back it up. Hopefully, he can back it up because obviously, like a first round out for Bucks would be a very bad look. And they were supposed to be like the top competitor against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference. Granted, who knows? Maybe they'll make a run in the playoffs and get back on track and end up being their biggest competitor. But at the very moment, they just been too up and down. Obviously, they were the second seed for most of the season, and then due to their poor finish, they dropped to the third seed. This is one of the series where I feel like it could potentially be on upset watch. Like, obviously, the Bucks very inconsistent this year, and it's really hard to predict where this team will finish this year. Ultimately speaking, at the end though, I do believe the Bucks will win this series. But I believe it will be close. My prediction is that the Bucks will beat the Pacers in 7. I really do think it's going to be a close series, and I don't think either team is going to pull away too easy. I could see the Pacers pulling an upset 4-2, maybe, but I believe at the end of the day, Bucks with their added experience versus the Pacers, not super experienced as this team, are yeah. I believe the Bucks should win, and I believe they will win a close one in 7 games. So, Memo, any thoughts on this series?
I agree. I think it's Bucks in 7. I think it's gonna be a fight for sure. Yeah, the Pacers did win the season series, but that was before the trade deadline. It was very early in the regular season, so who knows how much that should be looked into. Like, the Pacers did get Siakam eventually, but also Tyrese got injured after those games, and it hasn't really been the same since the play-in. Like, he's not a bad player, for sure, but he's just hasn't been the same efficiently shooting the ball. So, I think because of that, maybe the Bucks will take it. But the Bucks also have a lot of question marks because they're not as athletic as the Pacers. They're not as fast as the Pacers. So, it's going to be hard for them to keep up and defend the Pacers. And obviously, like, Giannis, we don't know his status because of his recent injury. Damian Lillard has balled out when Giannis has been gone. So there is some hope there that maybe he can handle defending the fort a little bit and maybe take advantage of their home court advantage, right? So it will be tough. It's not gonna be easy matchup, and if you want to say Pacers, I understand it, but I will go with the Bucks. I think they just got the veterans that know what they're doing, even though they're old and not as athletic. They are battle tested, which is important. They have Damian Lillard, who hasn't been the best this season, but if he can play like Portland, Damian Lillard, and lead them to 4 wins, that's all they need. They need 4 wins from him. So I think that's possible, and especially if Giannis comes back sooner than later, uh, I think the Bucks will end up winning the series. So I'll just stick with you and say Bucks in 7 for this series.
All right, not bad. And I believe that brings us to our final Eastern Conference first round matchup and for final first round matchup in general between the 4th seed and the 5th seed in the East, and that is the Cavs versus the Magic. Now, just to sum up the matchups they played in the regular season a little bit, the teams were tied 2-2 in the regular season games, but their last game they played was all the way back on February 22nd, which is pretty much 2 months ago. So they haven't seen each other in a while. I believe most of the games, the winner did win by a good margin, but one game was close, if I'm not mistaken. And between these two teams, the last time they played each other in the playoffs was that classic upset when the Magic upset the Cavs 4-2 in the 2009 Eastern Conference Finals when Dwight Howard led the Magic to that magical run to the finals where they beat the Celtics in the semifinals. The Cavs they beat the Celtics big three. I know KG was injured, but they beat Paul Pierce, Rondo, Ray Allen, and then next round they beat LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals. Ultimately lost to Kobe and the Lakers because clearly that was their year. But I feel like this time around, it's definitely gonna be another good series between these two teams. Just not as many big names as last time. But I believe that a very big factor that could determine who wins this series is really the health of like Donovan Mitchell, for example. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe Max Strus was also injured. I don't know if he is back from injury or not, because I haven't really been keeping up with the Cavs. I believe he did return, but nonetheless, the Cavs were dealing with some injuries. I believe Evan Mobley was also injured for a bit, and I believe that's going to be the X factor, Evan Mobley, and also Donovan Mitchell. If those guys are on the floor and healthy, I think the Cavs are going to win. But if like one of them is out or both of them are not 100%, I think it can go either way. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a really close series. My prediction is that the Cavs will win a very tight one in 7 games. Now, if the Magic won, I wouldn't be shocked. But I do believe that if we're talking talent-wise, the Cavs are the better team. So I pick the Cavs winning in 7. Memo, what are your predictions for this series?
For this series, I'm actually going with the Magic. So we both chose different teams on this one, and I'm saying Magic in 6. Yet the Cavs do have Donovan Mitchell, who is a playoff riser. He's shown time and time again that he could be one of the best players in the world when it comes to playoff time. But I just don't trust the Cavs at this moment. Like last year, they were embarrassed by the Knicks, And this year, I feel like this team is still not like clicking. The like Darius Garland hasn't played as well as his All Star year since Donovan Mitchell has joined the team. The Mobley and Allen pair up is still a little weird. The Cavs have great defense, but so does the Magic. I think the Magic has the defense that will be able to slow down Donovan Mitchell. With Suggs in there, Jonathan Isaac as well is a great defender. So if Donovan Mitchell is slowed down, that's kind of like it because that's their offensive powerhouse. Really, is Donovan Mitchell. Uh, Darius Garland needs to step up big time, which is a big question mark. If he could do that, other players like Max Strus, which like we don't even know his situation really, as he just mentioned. And yeah, the Magic do struggle offensively, but if Franz can get going and Paulo can get going as well, I could see them upsetting the Cavs, especially since they might have a chip on the shoulder because the Cavs purposely uh, didn't play their starters in the fourth quarter of their final game so they could avoid the Heat and avoid the Sixers and not get that second seed. And instead, they ended up dropping in fourth to face the Magic because that was a preferable matchup for them. And I'm sure the Magic are going to take offense to that and say, like, hey,
Oh,
like,
for sure.
uh, we're no like bums. We're here to play, and yeah, I think this could be a possible upset. So that's why I'm taking Magic in 6, but I don't blame you for taking Cavs in 7 because again, Donovan Mitchell at his peak is amazing in the playoffs. So yeah, I don't blame you for that take.
For sure. And as far as the Cavs taking that final game of the regular season, I do have to say that was a really embarrassing move to see, not gonna lie. I mean, like the entire NBA community gave them shit for that. And honestly, rightfully so. I mean, they made it too obvious that they were taking that game, just flat out sitting out the stars at the end. Like, I get it. I would also rather play against the Magic than the Heat and the Sixers, but didn't you guys have at least made it less obvious? Like, for example, what they could have done maybe would have been like when the starters are playing, maybe don't play as hard, let the Hornets keep stay the game closer, and then you can at least pretend that you guys are bad that you lost to them instead of us really obvious that you just like were scared to play another team. Instead, they made it too obvious that they were just tanking that game at the end. So definitely the Magic are looking to prove them wrong for that, and it really might backfire for the Cavs. Me personally, I want the Cavs to win, but I think it can go either way. Um, as mentioned, I think the Magic really could pull the upset, but ultimately speaking, I I just picked the Cavs just because like more star power, but easily I believe this will be a good matchup regardless which way it goes.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens, and yeah, we'll definitely update you guys week by week what's been going on in the playoffs. We'll make sure we're watching the games, taking notes, so we can provide you with a great rundown every Monday. So yeah, I think that's it. Unless you have anything else to add, I think we're done here.
I believe we did a pretty good job of summing up the play-in games and the first round playoff previews. Um, some of these playoff series were honestly quite difficult to make a prediction, while other ones were much more transparent. Nonetheless, we're both really excited to watch these upcoming matchups. Obviously, later today, actually, will be the first day on Saturday. And there's going to be some good games. 4 game slate. Definitely look forward to that. This is literally one of the best times of the year. Playoff basketball, top competition, and season winding down. So definitely should be fun. And we also will have our weekly recaps as the series go by. So definitely make sure you guys stay tuned on that.
Yeah, subscribe, follow us on all podcast platforms, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. Follow us there. Check out our social medias. I'm out there tweeting, making TikToks, so check that out if you're interested. But I think we are done here. This was a fun episode. And yeah, playoff basketball is here, so we're gonna have a lot more fun episodes for you all to enjoy. So, yeah, I guess we'll end it off here. So thank you all for watching. We'll see you all next time. Bye bye.